Hello everyone. So I wanted to do a quick live video. I actually wanted to do one this morning, but I ran out of time. So I figured I would jump on a live video now and talk to you guys about something really interesting that I happened to see. I was watching a live video that Dr. Joe was doing, and he was talking about Bill Campbell's lab in Southern Florida, where he does a lot of work with metabolism and some interesting studies, because there isn't much out about flexible dieting, reverse dieting, those kinds of things, especially reverse dieting and sort of different macro splits. And Dr. Joe, he likes to do low fat and higher carb diets. I like to do more moderate of everything. That's sort of my MO. I like to keep things pretty balanced. Sometimes I'll carb cycle, and you guys know that I also really like keto, but I'm interested in other people's and everyone's perspective. Mostly when I prescribe macros for clients, I look at how they generally eat. And I don't do anything complicated out of the gate until they are very familiar with how to count macros and plan their day in advance. I wanted to take a second and let you guys know, counting macros. So I don't want you to get confused with, that's not just logging your food in a food diary. That would just be food journaling, or keeping an accurate record of what you're eating, writing down your intake. When you're actually counting your macros, you have specific goals and you'll hit them. You'll hit your target numbers within typically a small range. Some people do 5 grams for protein, carbs, and fats. I like to do 5 grams for proteins and carbs and 2 for fats. And that's something that I think is helpful, because it keeps your calorie range pretty close, because fats are 9 calories per gram of fat, so they're twice as much. So I like to keep the range a little bit tighter. So one thing that I was watching in Dr. Joe's video that I thought was really, really interesting is in the studies that they do for metabolism, they have subjects, because a lot of the things that are studied, like the FDA requirements and things like that, they have, it's just for the general population. And if you're somebody who is exercising regularly, who's in a sport, you're an athlete, if you're trying to build muscle, if you have different physique goals, that's not the general population for the most part. So the requirements for protein, and if you let FitnessPal set your goals for you, the requirements for protein will be a lot lower than if you are pursuing a physique goal, if you're trying to build muscle mass, if you want to decrease your body fat, if you want to do a body recomp kind of thing. So that's something to think about. I hear a lot of people, their doctor will refer them to a dietitian. And while obviously I respect everyone who's a dietitian, some dietitians, and they're following more of the FDA requirements, and they may not be setting your specific goals or totals where you would want it to be for specific strength gains or building muscle or lean body mass, those kinds of things. So it's something to think about. Well, anyways, when I was watching Dr. Joe's video, and he was talking about Dr. Campbell and things and some of the studies that are being done in his lab, which I really like to follow, he was saying that when he gets people to be in the study, there is actually, these are people who are logging for a study, so they're being very, very accurate. There is a 30% error rate in how they're counting their macros and what they're tracking and what they're logging. So I wanted to touch on this because I think that I've told you guys, we've talked a little bit about adherence and accuracy with counting macros and some things that you can do to try and make sure that things are spot on. But that is where meal plans, they probably have the advantage, because you're eating the same things, there's just less room for error. So when you're counting and you're doing flexible dieting and you're having meals out, there is just a lot of room for error when you're eating out. And I try and tell everybody, and I'll reiterate because I think that it's come up a few different times, the protein amounts at any restaurant, they're gonna be spot on, because that is expensive stuff. So they're not gonna accidentally give you like 4 extra ounces of steak, but they may give you an extra half cup to a whole cup of rice. So it's something to keep in mind. If you feel like your macros are dialed in and you are eating the right amounts and you're not seeing the change and you're kind of like, what is going on? you might want to think about how often you're eating out. It's not to say that you can't eat out and still pursue fat loss goals. It's just to say that there's more room for error. So sometimes what you could do, until you get really good at it, eyeballing the portions, you could overestimate your amounts. I know that everyone is totally bent out of shape about metabolic damage, and oh my gosh, if I eat too little, I'll have metabolic damage. That's something that's going to take a lot of time to do. So using this strategy, 2 times a month or every now and then when you're going out to eat, if you're in fat loss, I mean, I don't recommend using this strategy to try. You're just not going to have the consistency if you're eating out every single day, multiple meals a day, somewhere that your portions could be way off, unless you're actually having them, bring you things plain and you know what it's cooked in. You have like a pretty good understanding of if something tastes like it's coated in butter and oil, it's probably coated in butter and oil. So if you want, if you are trying to eat out frequently, that's going to be like a whole nother video in itself. And you'd probably want to have your food skill with you a little more frequently than I would recommend, because I really don't want you guys to get neurotic about things. I like it when my clients can eyeball and they can figure things out. But if you're in active fat loss, you are going to have to tighten up these variables, and you're going to have to check your entries. Like I told you guys, Steve, my friend Steve, I don't think that he watches a lot of these live videos, but if you do, thanks Steve. We're still, we're still using your entries. If you look up chicken breast, SMJR, if you look up chicken breast, SMJR, you'll be able to find a lot of entries for protein, carbs, and fats that Steve put in that are really accurate. And I encourage you to use those entries because I know that they're accurate. Otherwise, the next thing you can do is you can Google some of these things. You don't want to rely solely on the people on FitnessPal putting together really accurate entries, because sometimes they just don't. Maybe they're just doing calorie counts, they're doing a different program, they don't care so much about the macros, there are missing parts of the entry, the sodium content isn't there, and I don't really track sodium. I don't tell you guys that you have to hone in on sodium so much, but at the same time, if you're having issues where you're feeling extremely bloated, maybe you have really bad PMS symptoms, you're noticing some things that are going on with you, you might want to see if your sodium has a lot of fluctuations or not, and or what your potassium levels are at. Because sometimes if you can match those up, if you can even some of those things out, you'll be relieved of those symptoms. When you're relieved of those symptoms and you're not feeling as bloated all the time and you're feeling good, you're more likely to stick with your fat loss goals and you're more likely to stay on your plan. So that's something to think about. If you're having digestive issues, all macronutrients, all foods are not created equal by no means. Flexible dieting is a way for you to be able to fit in some of the foods that you want to eat on a regular basis. For instance, for me, I like to have protein bars. So I can have, my 10% or 15% of calories from processed foods or kind of like semi-junk. I would consider protein bars as semi-junk food. And I can have that or a handful of M&Ms or what I want. Now, let's not be mistaken. If you're having digestive issues, you might want to look at some of the culprits, like things in processed foods. Xanthan gum, that's something that it has a lot of fiber. It's really slow digesting. Casein, if you're using shakes with casein protein, it's supposed to digest slowly. And so it's supposed to sit in your digestive tract. And that can cause a lot of gas and bloating. So if you're having digestive issues, you want to look at some of the things that are hard to digest, like broccoli, cauliflower, some of those vegetables that are really hard for your body to break down. You want to take a look at those and see if that is a problem. If it is, you can kind of divide your portions. You could eat them differently. You could change vegetables altogether to a different vegetable. You want to look at dairy. People have trouble digesting dairy for some reason. You could be one of those people. I'm not saying that everyone is lactose intolerant. That's a whole different issue. It's more about comfort, and that's when you could think about food sensitivities. I don't recommend going and getting a full panel of tests. You don't need to spend all of the money. You could just do a basic food journal and cut some of the things out. But circling back, so flexible dieting, does that mean that all foods are going to agree with you the exact same because a protein is a protein and carb is a carb and fat's a fat? No, that's not the case. So if you're finding some of these things are an issue, you just need to kind of hone in on what foods are going to work the best for you. on top of that, you need to find the foods that work the best for you and the macro amounts that'll work the best for you, and what kind of program will work the best for you. Keto or carb cycling, sorry guys, I'm getting some alerts. Keto or carb cycling or any other method is not going to make you lose body fat faster. It could potentially make you more comfortable. It could give you a little mental relief because you're having these high carb days sprinkled in. You don't necessarily need a lot of refeeds. Like I want everyone, if possible, if we can kind of move away from the fear of ruining our metabolism in 20 minutes. You don't need to constantly refeed. If your calories are extremely low and you have certain symptoms, then you might want to think about having refeeds. You will need more refeeds the leaner you get. So if you're not at that stage yet, it's perfectly fine if you feel like it's easier for you to have the same macros every day and kind of coast along. That's cool. You can keep doing that. If you feel as though it's too mentally taxing and you want to take a refeed or a high carb day, or kind of have a free meal that's has some kind of guidelines so that you're not having a full out, you gave yourself permission to have a complete binge, then that's something that you can do. You want to think about all of these things. You want to think about your lifestyle. You want to think about your activity level. You want to think about what makes you the most comfortable, and you want to think about how mentally taxing a program is going to be. For me, I don't like doing too many carb cycles because I like to get in a rhythm and get in a groove. And so that's why I really liked keto. I would just do my low carb days. I would do it all week. I would have higher carb days on the weekends, and then I would go back into keto for the week again. That worked really well for me. The same thing with, I do isocaloric macros a lot because I like just kind of getting in a groove. This is what I like to eat. I'll eat the same thing for a few days. My entries are on point then. I'm not doing like a lot of guesswork. I pretty much have it hammered out. Like, this is what's going to happen. And it's okay if you eat out and things aren't going the way that you want, because you can change whatever's happening at any moment. The last thing that you want to do is sit there and like dwell on the past and be like, oh my gosh, I could have been this far by now. Like, why haven't I locked in? Just take the past stuff, wrap it up in a nice little present, and just lose it. Just get rid of it. You don't need to dwell on that. Focus on moving forward. I've done that a lot. Sometimes like I'll beat myself up about it if things don't go my way. But what I would suggest everyone to do, if you are counting macros, and this is not just Dear Diary, like I woke up this morning, this is what I had for breakfast, this is what I had for lunch, and at the end of the day, let me see where my numbers are. No, this is active planning to hit your goals and achieve consistency. So if you're planning for tomorrow, go through and make sure all of your entries are accurate. Save your entries, save your favorite meals. If you guys subscribed and got the free ebook, I did, how to count macros in 7 days. There's a ton of great tips in there. You could snag that. I made a email series with it that added some bonus tips because I just want to help everyone be as accurate as possible. Because it bothers me that flexible dieting is getting a bad rap for two reasons. It's getting a bad rap that it doesn't work because people aren't really tracking accurately and they're not seeing results. And it's getting a bad rap because it seems like people are just using it to eat crap. And that's not what it's for. It's actually a really great tool that you can make sure that you get a variety of foods. That's really important when you think about it. You think about, have a colorful plate, the things that we have learned, how to have a lot of micronutrients in our diet, have a colorful plate, eat a wide array of foods, try different proteins and fruits and vegetables and things like that. So that's what flexible dieting is all about. And that'll prevent you from eating, like I did for 3 years, 6 foods to get in shape. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that. I wanted to do a quick Facebook Live video about, how you could be off when you're counting and you could think that you're eating a lot less. It's the average American underestimates what they're eating by, 30% or something he was saying, and the logs are off by 30%. So go through your entries, see what's going on with that. If you feel like you're hung up, if you feel like you have digestive issues, think about just doing simple elimination of a few things to see how you feel without those things. And then you can slowly add things back in and you can find the culprit. Don't just assume that it's something. Just find out for yourself. Make sure that you're not eliminating whole food groups just because everyone else is. Just because everyone else is eliminating gluten doesn't mean you have to. Maybe it does make you feel crappy and you should eliminate it, then eliminate it. But try and figure out yourself. The more you know about yourself, and that's what I strive for with my clients, the more you can figure out how your body works the best, the happier you're gonna be. And the more you can figure out how your body and your mind works, it's going to give you a lot of satisfaction, and this is going to be a change that can last for good. So if you guys have any questions for me, you know, you're always welcome to leave a message. I'm so happy to see some of you guys jumped on this live video. Maybe the evening is the time to do it. I had some downtime and I figured I would jump on a call here. Nolan is not feeling good, but fortunately he is holding it together right now and I can talk to you guys. So I hope you all have a good night, and I hope that this was helpful, and I'll talk to you all soon.